Hello and welcome to this MBA and BGA webinar on how to make hybrid learning a success. Valuable lessons from UC Berkeley Executive Education in association with Barco. I'm Natalia Mankowska, Commercial Liaison and Relations Manager. I'm really looking forward to an hour of really interesting insight, and shortly I will hand over to our speakers. Julie Shackleton, Vice President Digital Initiatives at UC Berkeley Executive Education, and Simone Hammer, Global Head of Marketing at Barco, to start the conversation. Before I do, some housekeeping. We want the session to be as interactive as possible, so if you have any questions, just add them to the question box for us to answer live at the end. If you miss anything, don't worry, because the recording and slides will be available in post-event comms and on the MBA and BGA websites within a week. Without further ado, I will now hand over to Julie and Simone.
Thank you, Natalia. I will hop it off and maybe ask Julie. Well, first of all, thank you for being here with us today. I think people are here actually to listen to your story, to how you make hybrid work, how you use actually a software platform, how it works with your faculty. We will answer many questions, and we really would like, as Natalia already said, make this session as interactive as possible. There is a little bit of theory, of course, a lot of pictures so that you can see what we're talking about, and there should be a lot of room to interact. Please don't hesitate also to ask your questions during the session, and if we can also hop into them during the session. So Julie, welcome here and thank you for being here. Maybe you want to introduce yourself briefly before we hop it off.
Sure. Good morning, everyone from Berkeley, or good afternoon, good evening. So I'm Julie Shackleton, as Simone said. I'm Vice President of Digital Initiatives with Berkeley Executive Education. So I joined Berkeley in February 2020. Prior to that, I'd been with HBS Online, and prior to that, I had a secret life as a lawyer that I quickly moved on from. And so starting in Berkeley in February 2020 was fortuitous timing to come in to run all things online for Berkeley Exec Ed. As you all know, in March, things changed for all of us, and there was a real focus on online learning.
Thank you, Julie. So I would like, when we prepared this webinar, Julie and I, we said we have a couple of things we want to know from you. Usually when we run webinars or sessions, we do that on WeConnect. Of course, it's our platform, let's say. You will hear a lot about that, and that's where we can see you. Today, we cannot see you, but we still want to understand who you are and what you are using. So that's why I hand it over also to Natalia. Could you please launch the first poll question? So there will be a possibility to answer to this very simple question. Are you currently using hybrid classrooms in your institution? Are you currently using hybrid classrooms in your institution? Yes, no, or you don't know. I'll leave a little bit of time, and Natalia, as soon as you have the results in, maybe you can read them out so that I can hear them as I don't see them.
And I'm sure people are thinking, well, what's the definition of hybrid? Because we have some version of that, perhaps.
Exactly, and we will come to that, you know.
We certainly will.
Okay.
Great. So it's yes at 64%.
64% yes. Okay, so you already have hybrid classrooms. Okay, good. Now let's look at this one. So I've chosen one of these pictures that we all know. This was all, of course, also during COVID time, but could be today as well. Lots of people, as we go into the winter, are still wearing masks. It's really what we can call a hybrid classroom. So people that are in the room, people that are remote, as you can see here on a simple screen that was added, and you're running these sessions on UC software like Zoom or Teams or WebEx or whatever you have available in your institution. that's actually what we will not be talking about today. So we will talk about a really immersive experience, and that's why I ask now the question again. Poll number 2 that we can launch, please. Are you currently running hybrid classes with UC softwares or Zoom, Teams, or WebEx, or any Google Meet or whatever you have available in your institution? Are you currently running hybrid classes with Zoom, Teams, WebEx, software platform that you have already available also for your meetings, or that are already packaged with your Microsoft suite, or maybe what we can do in the meantime until we get the results in, I will show a couple of pictures, and maybe Julie, if you want to kick it off also, to say, okay, what we are talking about is, could you explain a little bit what you are doing actually in Berkeley from a virtual and from a hybrid perspective, and when you have chosen to go there and why? Just give us a little bit of insights, and I will show a couple of pictures in the meantime, and then we can come back to the poll.
Sure. The poll results are in, Simone, just to let you know.
All right, okay.
And it's 73% say yes, they are running hybrid classes with UC software, and 16% say no, and 11% say they don't know.
Okay, thank you. Interesting. Okay.
So this photo that you're looking at is actually our proof of concept hybrid space. So in 2020, we moved to virtual classrooms using the Barco system. And then just in early 2022, we dipped our toe into the world of hybrid with the same system. So this is very much a proof of concept room using hardware that we already had to really try it out.
Okay.
And this is a more extensive upgrade that we did to another of our rooms. So this was originally a virtual classroom. You'll see the wall at the back there of all the different seats. And previously, the whiteboard and the screens were much closer, obviously around 15 feet between the two of them. It was more intimate for virtual. And what we did was we upgraded all of our virtual classrooms to hybrid. So in that we pulled everything back, but obviously the physical space isn't the only thing that changed. Obviously there were changes on both the hardware and the software side of the build.
Okay, so why did you decide actually, Julie, to upgrade, as you say, your virtual classrooms into hybrid classrooms? What was the driver?
So I think, back in around spring 2021, I'm sure we were all in the same boat where we were trying to work out, what's next, what's going to happen after this passes, is this ever going to pass? And for us, we were really focusing on that so I'm from executive education, so we have executive participants. So for our participants, they wanted flexibility moving forward, whether that was to come back to campus. So many people obviously wanted to come back to campus, but a lot of people wanted the flexibility to stay at home for various reasons or stay in their office. So that's when we started looking into hybrid. And, initially it was hard to prove that there would be a market for it. I suppose a question for us all is, will there continue to be a market? I think there will be, but initially it was like, people want to come back or they want to stay online. Nobody's really screaming for a hybrid solution, but we really felt that the flexibility was needed. And so from us, it was driven by our more custom B2B clients who, wanted to continue learning journeys with us, but we're finding it very difficult to get a big group of their staff or participants to Berkeley, with not only COVID, but obviously visa issues because consulates were closed, etc. So we kept having to push programs back. And the hybrid solution allowed us to continue those learning journeys because there was going to be 10 or 15 or 20 out of a big group who couldn't never make it. So we had it as a great backup solution initially. And that was very successful for us in early 2022. I think we ran nearly 400 hours of hybrid sessions from the beginning of 2022 till around June, because we had so many groups that still wanted to come but needed that backup solution. So that's how we ended up with upgrading all of our rooms. And now we're moving to the next step of having a hybrid classroom as one of our products, like programs we offer as hybrid.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned flexibility, and we will come back to that a little bit later, but just wanted to hop in here. Do you leave the flexibility to your participants, to your students, to come or to stay away whenever they want in a full program, or do they need to choose one or the other? So that, I mean, because there's some logistics involved, I guess, right?
Yeah, right now, the way we run things is you choose either a virtual seat or an in-room seat, and that's the way it stays. When we were using it more as a backup solution, it was a bit more flexible, but we certainly found that that was much more difficult for us on our side to run on a daily basis. If one day we had 6 remotes, the next day there was a COVID scare and we had 25, we're trying to fit them all in, you know, it was a lot of work for us as a team. So now that we are offering programs in hybrid form, you choose your seat either virtual or in the room.
Okay, and you told me in a conversation that they then come from one cycle, or yeah, they come in and they sometimes look into the hybrid classroom or so. So they sometimes come also then to the campus for some of the sessions where everybody meets up again, or.
Yeah, for in the groups that came over, of course, everybody would know each other anyway, so that they would come to some in-person events too.
Okay.
But for some of our programs, it's more in the virtual side. We have, you know, they do 5 months in the virtual classroom and then they do a week on campus. And they're the groups that are very excited to obviously meet in person and then see the virtual classroom from the other side.
Of course. Okay. I'm just moving on here. So this is another room, right?
Yeah, that's our smallest virtual classroom, and we've done the same for that. So that's a much more intimate classroom, either virtually or in hybrid, around 24 in the room, and then up to 48 on the wall.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So, so you said that you had decided to go for virtual classrooms first. So when was that, and what was the driver for the virtual classrooms before you actually expanded that to a hybrid experience?
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, I started in February 2020. And, you know, the coronavirus was something that was happening far away, and, you know, none of us really thought it was going to impact us. So it wasn't a real part of our decision making at the time. But we had been discussing, you know, our faculty traveling to teach, as I'm sure that happens in a lot of institutions. They travel very far and then they have to get back. And it's, you know, they love doing it, but it's also a lot of effort. And I was sharing my experiences of working in Harvard Business School, and one of the most exciting parts of that for me was participating in their virtual classroom, HBX Live. So I was trying to explain it to everybody, and, you know, everyone was very interested in it. So we actually started doing up a business use case for the virtual classrooms in mid February 2020. I found them recently. I was thinking how innocent and naive we all were in those days. So we were doing up the business case. You know, global pandemics were not part of the business case at that stage. We thought we were going to do a bigger build, more custom build in the vein of Harvard Business School. But obviously things significantly changed a couple of weeks later. And we then already had the foundations built for what we wanted. So we were able to move quite quickly after a couple of weeks of going, oh my gosh, what's going on? Yeah, we moved quickly to get approval from our dean and the board. And by April 29th, we had a contract signed with them. McCann, our integrator, and Barco, and then hardware started arriving at the end of May. The build was done by the second week of June in 2020, and we were testing all summer, and then we were ready at the beginning of August for the fall semester. So thinking back on it now, I mean, you couldn't get that done now with the global procurement issues. I don't know how we all did it, but we got it done very quickly, so we were very lucky. And so we built 4 classrooms and 1 QA environment. So we had sort of 5 virtual classroom builds.
You mentioned also the integrator. I mean, we will talk a lot more about WeConnect, of course, and maybe I can show here one picture of, well, this could be a WeConnect virtual experience. So this is not a hybrid experience, but I mean, we wanted to talk a little bit about also the virtual experience because it all started there actually for WeConnect. But before that, Julie, you mentioned also the integrator McCann. How important was that actually to have the right integrator, the right people, actually, not only the right platform? How important is the team that has been working with you and your team actually at Berkeley?
I cannot overemphasize enough how important the team is. Just to set in context for everybody else, if you think that this is something super technical and you need, a whole IT team, I'm not technical by background. I'm a lawyer. I'm very enthusiastic about tech, but certainly, you get to networks and subdomains, I'm very lost. And my team, the same. None of us had a technical background whatsoever. So I connected with McCann Systems, who also were involved in the Harvard Business School build, and they shepherded us through the whole project and still do to this day. And, I've spoken to a lot of people who've attempted virtual classrooms, with Barco or with other companies. And it's very clear that the integrator is going to make or break your experience, because it's to state the obvious, the integration of the Barco software with whatever hardware build that you choose that will work for you is just essential.
Okay, yeah, that's what we hear from a lot of our customers. This partnership actually is truly important, not only for the swift implementation, but also to be there and to make sure that the adoption actually is done. So I mean, the partner, our integration partner is really important, and we select them carefully, of course, and then also we have customer success managers that make sure that the adoption is done, that everything's fine, that any changes are done as needed, etc. So this is another experience.
And Simone,
sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Simone, I would just add to that not only is it important at the front end, as you say, and ongoing, but to continue that partnership, because getting a virtual classroom or getting a hybrid classroom isn't enough. We need to be constantly looking forward. And so I come up with the very out of the box ideas. I'm sure the integrator in McCann roll their eyes, and so do our friends at Barco when we're asking for features. But then we get there, and then that's what, we always want to be moving forward with this.
Well, maybe sometimes people roll their eyes, and I guess that's human. but I mean, I can just emphasize, I mean, the partnerships that we build actually with institutions like Berkeley and with yourself, Julie, because that's how we progress. You're pushing us hard sometimes, so product development, and we make sure that we are getting actually the best out of the solution. I mean, the best not only of the solution, because what really is important is the outcomes behind, and that the hybrid experience that we are talking about today is the best that you can get, and that the participants get the best experience, right?
Yeah, so, and Simone, two questions have come in here. I don't know if you want to answer them. Shall we go to them now, or?
Yeah, I cannot see them, so let's go.
Sure. I shall be your assistant here. You're welcome. One person said, I see no whiteboard, so how does faculty annotate on screens? So there actually are whiteboards. They're digital whiteboards. I don't know if, Simone, you can go back maybe to one of our images there. There, yes. You see there, and you see with the blue screen at the front of the room, that's just actually a digital whiteboard by a company called Avocor, and they're brilliant. Faculty love them. They want them in every normal classroom. They want them everywhere. It's one of their most favorite features of our virtual classrooms. And you can also capture your slide on that screen, so you can annotate as well. And of course, that's all magically wired into the system, so those who are remote will see it on their computer as well. They don't have to look through a camera at it.
Maybe let me hop in before you go to the second question that was asked.
Yeah.
Just very important to understand as well. So the Barco WeConnect system is all software. So it's little there's a little hardware component. It's little nuts, little computers that make the whole miracle work. But what you can see here, the hardware, the screens, the interactive whiteboard, the confidence monitors, etc. And I will go back actually how the setup is done. Are completely hardware agnostic. So it's really up to you and the integrators, our integration partner, the AV integrator, to choose the right material that fits actually your needs. We even had one client that was refurbishing some screens. I mean, everything is possible, and that's why we can also actually offer a multiple range of solutions from a very small one to very, very sophisticated ones.
Yeah, very true. And then another question is, I don't see microphones in the classroom. How do the in-person students' questions get picked up? Great question. So you'll see in this room, there's just the boom mics coming from the top of the screens at the front and the top of the screens at the back. What you can't see in this picture is that we also have a Shure mic, which is very long and narrow, that sits in the corner of the classroom and picks up all of the audio in the room, and it works very well. But yeah, getting the in-rooms mic'd, or in our proof of concept, I don't know if you can go back to that, the first picture,
Yeah.
one of our pictures.
Yeah.
Go back. Oh, the other way. There, yes. In this room, because of the proof of concept, and we didn't build into the in-room audio, you'll see that, you may or may not see that each seat has one of those table mics that you have to press. And that became very frustrating for everybody, because as we know, even in an in-person, yeah, that's the one, in an in-person classroom, people don't press those buttons, or they're shy and they don't want to press the button, that kind of thing. So it was a real issue for us in the proof of concept that our remote students weren't hearing what was going on in the room, and they were feeling a lot of anxiety about that. And, you know, it resulted in constant norming, my team sort of diving all over the room, pressing buttons for people when they were talking. And then we moved to a handheld mic. You know, we were trying to do everything to make it work in that space. But in the upgrades, that's what we've done as a solution for now, because we're upgrading slowly. You know, unfortunately, I don't have endless supplies of cash to do the perfect room for now. So we're using that standing mic, which very well captures the audio in the room. But ideally what we would use is, you know, tracking mics with tracking cameras. So in the ceiling, so that would all get picked up. But the standing mics work very well. That's from a company called Shure, SHURE.
Yeah, there's very nice actually equipment out there that is really good, and I couldn't stress more that for hybrid setups, even more than for virtual setups, the most important thing is the basics is to be heard and to be seen, right? And if we cannot get that right, and that's a lot of the integrator's job. I mean, it's of course the room setup, you have to plan it out, you have to try things out as well, and then you have to go maybe even modify things and test it, you know. But it is so crucial. Isn't it frustrating? I guess everybody here in this webinar has experienced that you have meetings or training sessions and you cannot see the people who are talking. You know, it's just not possible, right? And you cannot get the best out of it as we all would like people to have. Okay, so then I move on here into the WeConnect virtual experience. Just for those who don't know WeConnect, again, what is so great about it? Well, I think it's really about the enhanced engagement that lots of people are suffering from, that as soon as a session is hybrid or virtual, it's not enough engaging, it's not engaging enough, there's not enough interaction, collaboration, and also the visualization. So you always can see actually the people that are remote, nearly full size, as you can see here. This is our virtual studio in Belgium. So we are a Belgium-based company. I didn't talk about that a lot, but you have lots of tools that are integrated. And here what you can see is the CA. There was a poll like we just have done before here, and as the host can see what were the answers actually of the group and can immediately react to that, modify the course, say, oh, okay, I can see that my students this time, they didn't get it. They didn't get the lesson, or they didn't get the discussion. Or if it is more really a discussion, say, okay, there are lots of different opinions out there. Let's discuss that a little bit, and then go back to one or the other person and say, so what do you think about it? Why did you answer C? Why did you answer B? And so you have this immediate feedback. Okay, so this is really in the virtual room. Here is another picture, and I tried to show that now in big. So you can ask a question, and you have got 240 characters to key in actually an answer. So that might be sometimes overwhelming for the host that you can see here, but when you discuss actually things, you can pick up some of the opinions, some of the answers, and also go back. That's things that are really more difficult to do, or you cannot do them. Of course, nobody will have an A or a B or hence heart head written on his or her forehead. And that is something that is possible, and that we now try also to make possible for the hybrid experience. Because kind of when I had the discussion before with Julie, she said, yeah, these are tools that we are really now we really like them. The faculty loves them, and we cannot have them with the people that are in the room actually, and we want to actually see the same things. Maybe Julie, you want to comment on this one?
Yeah, it was a big moment when, we've been sketching out how the hybrid solution would work. And, first was, okay, everyone needs to see the same thing. Everyone needs to be able to be seen. Everyone needs to be heard. So-and-so needs to hear so-and-so, it was very sort of technical. And so we set it all up, plugged it all in, switched it on. And immediately I was, because this was in January 2022, when we were also dealing with a wave of COVID, and we're always flying the plane without kind of knowing where we're going. We switched it on, and then it just hit me that, hang on, the in-room experience is not as good as the virtual experience. The tools in the virtual experience are far superior to anything that's in the room. And that was a huge panic moment for me, because that never occurred to me that could actually be possible. So, since then, we've been working steadily with Barco to get us to a point where it's an equitable experience for both the remote students and the in-person students. And we're definitely moving in the right direction, but we're not fully all the way there, but we have a plan to get there. But it's flipping everything on its head, thinking that the virtual experience is actually better. I mean, that's where we started with hybrid, which I don't think is where a lot of people start. But once you've experienced this open answer poll, for example, is one of my favorite features, because it's a great tool for faculty to use if the room has gone very quiet, or there's not that much interaction. They can ask whatever they want. It's rare that we give answers that long, but even our favorite one for warming up is what you've had for breakfast. We're obviously very food obsessed in Berkeley, but even just seeing oatmeal on someone's face, then you're like, oh well, you had oatmeal, so tell me about that. It just naturally starts a conversation and takes the pressure off the faculty, because they don't need to remember who's answered or who hasn't answered, what people have answered, because the answer is right there written on their face. So obviously the in-room participants, we can't write things on their face. I think we'd get in trouble if we did. So we definitely have solutions for that. But it was a kind of shocking moment for me to realize that, oh, this in-room, everyone has this idea that the in-room is where everyone wants to be, and virtual is kind of the second choice. But for us, it's actually flipped. And there was a question about higher demand for in-person seats versus virtual seats. And that isn't what we've seen. We have a program right now running, and it's 30 online, 30 in person, give or take. There's one or two difference. And there was a real demand for those hybrid seats, the remote seats, which I was obviously pleased to see. And just out of interest, the majority are actually local California people who want to take the class remotely. So there's definitely a segment of the market who still want that flexibility.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, thank you. In the discussion before we move on, one of the things that you brought up and really first my thinking or our thinking at Barco is, yeah, we always thought, okay, and that's what you hear a lot also in the media, and I assist to many conferences and everything, that you create that learning equity or class equity or meeting equity, but how you do that, usually people think, it's actually mimicking or bringing the remote people into the room. And you, Julie, you were thinking about it actually in a different way, the other way around, right?
Yeah, really, it was more that we've worked this virtual experience out and it's very successful. So now how do we bring the in-person people into the virtual experience? Obviously, it goes without saying, there are many things in person that are much more challenging to replicate online, the networking, the just being together, all of that. And that another question was asking about that. And, I think that's a constant work for all of us for that integration between the remote participants and the in-room participants. Barco does have a solution for the breakout rooms, so that there is a way for you to mix breakout groups with remote participants and in-room participants. We haven't built that yet. But even, it was very easy for us when it was groups of people from the same organization or the same university and they already knew each other. There would be great fun in the room where before the class would start, they'd be up talking at the wall and having jokes. It was, great hilarity and a real togetherness environment. Now that we're offering it as a standalone product where nobody knows each other, and either in the room or remotely, it's a marked difference of the interaction between the wall and the in-room. And that's obviously something that we every day are trying different things to make that work.
So it seems that the physical room actually to have this remote student wall is a real plus actually, because people can even connect there before, after the session, after the class, right? Interesting. Hear that. Yeah, maybe one other thing here is we do statistics, and also you can have that either after the session or even during the session. So if you're not quite sure, here we have Lisa, how much has she participated? So she had raised her hand once. She hasn't answered any questions or correct answers or wrong answers. She hasn't answered any questions. And her last answer was that she liked something. So you have some statistics that you can immediately also actually request through the system, just one button to click, or you can download it afterwards as the session statistics. And all the answers are the answers that were given, these 240 character answers. You can get these downloaded if you want to work on your session or what has happened during the session.
And this is a huge feature, Simone. If you think about it, everything that happened on the platform is recorded. So right now you have to go and get that data and translate it yourself. But if you're looking at recording participation data, who spoke, how long they spoke for, for us, we're always looking at, are men speaking more than women, or, coming from different places, are they speaking more? And then we try to adjust around that. So that's something that we haven't fully leveraged, but there's a ocean of data out there behind the Barco We Connect.
Yeah, and there are institutions that use that quite a lot, because we can have, as you said, we can have, of course, bias is human, and we even if we fight it, everybody does, of course, but there is some things that happen. Getting a reminder by the system directly is a good one. Also, just that you always look, for instance, into the center of your screens, and people have a reserved seat. Maybe that's something also to mention. So it's not like on Zoom or Teams that when you come back from a breakout session and people are sitting somewhere else. No, they have their seat actually on the wall, as the people usually stay also seated actually at the same space or the same place in the room. Sorry, you can identify them, and sometimes you just don't look too much onto the left side or onto the right side. So it's an interesting thing. Okay, I'm just looking at time. It's good we are taking the questions in, so we can go a little.
There's still a lot more there, just to let you know.
Oh,
so
right,
we'll
okay.
get those
when we
get to them. We'll definitely get to them.
Okay, so just a little bit of background as well, then we come back to more practical things. So why choosing a Barco WeConnect room? It's in a hybrid configuration, of course, we're talking now. It's really about enjoying all the flexibility you need. So switching between setups easily and host hybrid sessions flexibly. What does it mean? I think, Julie, you mentioned it very clearly. You started with virtual classrooms. You changed them to hybrid classrooms. You can also now, I guess, run virtual classrooms in these hybrid classrooms. So you are flexible actually to do things. I will also show a couple of pictures afterwards. You can go from an auditorium setup, like you have seen them in the pictures before, to a more collaborative setup. You can switch that and start with an auditorium setup and switch it then into pods and collaborative setup with these collaboration pods and breakout facility where you mix up in-room and remote participants, right? You can also, as I said, organize fully virtual sessions. Also ensuring participant equity, and we have been talking about that as well. I mean, what does it mean, participation or participant equity? Is it bringing people that are remote into the room, or bringing the in-room participants into a virtual experience? I found actually this discussion very, very, very interesting. And what we want at the end, it's not really about shall people come into the room or shall people come into the virtual experience. We want to get the best outcomes, and that people feel connected and engaged, and that they have a good time, and that they learn, of course, so because these programs, they come here to learn and to be together. So that's really important. Multiple cameras, Julie mentioned that as well, on site, and multiple streams in the platform, so that we have 360-degree views, so being seen, being heard. I mentioned that before. Multiple screens. If you have multiple screens at home, that's always recommended, and I'm not following the recommendation today here, but then you can really isolate the content, and you can you have a very unique experience, a very immersive experience. Maybe something that we have launched only this year was really something that was very much needed for the hybrid experience, is the mobile companion. This is giving a lot of possibilities on a smartphone to vote, to answer questions, all these interactive features. Julie, maybe asking you, how do you use a mobile companion or these features actually to create more equity in your sessions?
Yeah, so initially when we were doing our proof of concept room, Barco was still working on features, but these weren't out. So we had the question of faculty want to do a poll. We have these great polls for the virtual, for the remote participants, but how are we going to do the polls in the room? And some faculty had very strong opinions that they always used XYZ site or whatever for their polls. So it was kind of this weird situation where we had to go poll, everyone had to go onto their computer, go onto their phone, do a poll somewhere else, but now Barco has the ability to, you get a QR code for each session, and the in-room participants also have a Barco account and access to a hybrid version of the platform, either on their computer or on their phone. And so when a poll comes up, they just click the QR code and it'll come up on their phone, so they can answer polls there, they can add to the chat there, they can also see the slides and the whiteboard. So that is, it's newer, but it's working fine for us. It doesn't get us all the way to exactly the same as the in-room because it's not showing up on their face, but we've got plans. We've got plans for that.
And we need to keep some things to keep us busy, right? So to develop more of that. And just for the audience as well, for you, Julie, it's certainly obvious, but we have a hybrid mode. So if you start up a session actually on our platform, you can select, is it a hybrid classroom, a hybrid session, or is it a virtual session? And if it is a hybrid session, people can also log actually on with their web browser. But some of the faculty or some institutions don't want people to have their computer. They want really people just to listen and to interact and to do the breakouts, etc. Others, of course, use them all the time. So both possibilities are possible. Okay.
Yeah, we were having this conversation yesterday about computers in the room, and the faculty say that now students say to them, "Do you hate trees? Is that why we can't use the laptops?" So I think things definitely for us have shifted since the pandemic with regards to laptops in the room, especially for an exec ed audience.
Of course, yeah. Then maybe also why choosing a Barco WeConnect room is really about the connection, the participant, the student connection, hearing, seeing each other. Remote participants have the right audio. It's really set up in the right way. And the collaboration then comes really naturally, chatting, answering polls and quizzes, using a collaborative whiteboard, breaking out into groups, mixing up people is really important. And then last but not least, the ease of the facilitator's experience. I think for the participants, for the students, it's great. They have flexibility. They have a really nice experience. And we didn't go really into the details of what exactly they see. It's here. We're not in a product review, feature review. But it's also about the facilitator or the faculty. And the faculty has to be at ease. It has to be easy to use. They have to see the added value. They have, for them, what I've heard, I mean, I come out of a teacher family, and during the pandemic, when they had to teach to a hybrid audience, so half of the students were at home, half of the students were in the class, they sometimes just doubled up and said, okay, we did some content with one group and some other content with another group, or they repeated it and did it twice. This is not necessary anymore, because you really create that space. And if we say now it's a virtual experience where everybody meets together, I mean, that's also what is easing up the experience of the faculty. Julie, I would like to ask you, you're in contact with all the faculty that are using your hybrid rooms. What's their feedback?
I would say the short answer is overwhelmingly positive. I think, anyone who works with faculty or works with people knows that, there's a great range of enthusiasm for change, both ends of the spectrum. For us, we really set up our environment to mimic, for our virtual environment, to mimic the in-person environment as much as possible. So in theory, it was possible for a faculty member not to be trained and just come in and teach in the same way that they would teach. And, that did happen for us on several occasions where, especially in the deepest, darkest COVID moments, there weren't extra time for them to come on campus, that kind of thing. So they just came straight in and just went for it. But we obviously trained the majority of our faculty on the different tools and features so they could really maximize their use of the room. And what I found is, even with the most resistant faculty, even in the hybrid setup, where, initially we didn't really have a choice because we had these clients with these large number of participants who are coming, and then we had to offer that backup option. They weren't enthusiastic before they started or at the beginning of the week, but by the end of the week, they became very enthusiastic. I think change is obviously very difficult when you've been doing, teaching in the same way for a very long time. But this system really allows them to be in their natural environment so that they can do what they do best and just focus on the teaching. And that's how we run it. The system is built to be able to be run by the faculty member by themselves. But we prefer the way we do it is a more white glove experience for our faculty and participants. So they just come in and do their thing, and then they can go.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I think having the faculty on board is just really crucial. And sometimes we choose also technology, or people choose technology, really thinking of the best, knowing this is the best. But if the buy-in is not there, it's very, very difficult actually. And the buy-in, the trust, you gain it actually with showing how it works and taking people also by their hand. Just very quickly now. This is the WeConnect hybrid setup. You've seen it in real life at Berkeley Executive Education. So what you can see here is the auditorium setup or the classroom setup, the style where you have the participant role. You can see also the Shure audio. We put here Shure audio and Logitech video. These are our partners, but you can use any audio or video equipment. So it's not only Shure audio or Logitech audio, but that's where we know we get really very great outcomes. LCD screens, of course, touch panels, and whiteboards, or at least one interactive whiteboard that you can see here on the left side. This is the equipment then in the room. And then you have the participant equipment, is a laptop or a tablet. So here in that case, or just a smartphone then with the companion mode. And you need the software, of course. So the studio powered by the Barco WeConnect software solution. These are little NUCs, little red computers that nobody will see. Not a very prominent thing. What is important actually for us is really the people in the room. It's to connect the people. It's to make them work together. And then last but not least here, and we have been already mentioning them right in the beginning because it's really, really important, is the AV and the integrator that you can trust and the team actually that works together between your institution, the integrator, and the software provider, which is here Barco. And with that, I would like to launch the third poll and last poll here. Are you planning to set up hybrid classes in your institution? And if I say hybrid classes, means this more enhanced version actually than what you have done. I think if I look back, it was 74% said that you do hybrid with Zoom or Teams or what else. And 64 said that you're already doing hybrid classrooms in general. So most of you are doing that, of course, on Zoom, Teams, and other UC software. So are you planning to go after an enhanced experience where you bring the audience together virtually or in the room, however you want to have this experience done, connecting them, making them more engaged? Yes, no, or you don't know?
Yes for 62, no for 12, don't know 26.
Okay, good. So hybrid is definitely still a topic, and we see hybrid really as being also a topic for corporations. So we, on one hand side, we serve, of course, business schools, higher education institutions, but also academies. Those who do executive education for their employees, for their leaders, to train them. And for them, of course, now with the flexibility that you need to have in the workplace, it's really important also to have hybrid equipment. And that's why I wanted to also talk a little bit about hybrid deployment, because sometimes we meet also, Barco, we meet customers or prospects that think that, okay, hybrid can be done with technology. And that's just simply not true. It's not only technology. I mean, technology is one part of it. Our Barco software, I would love to say, oh, it's just the software, just implement it and all your sorrows or pains will be relieved. A big part of it, I hope, but not everything. So it's really about defining the mission. And this is about bringing people on board, understanding why you are doing it. That's also why I asked the question to Julie. So why did you want to go hybrid? What is the real motivation behind, understanding that, also setting up some KPIs and measure what do you want to achieve. And then bringing the trainers or the faculty on board, making sure you have early adopters that can talk about it in a very positive way. The technology, the software platform is of course important, and then evaluate. And if I say evaluate, is look, oh, we had this as a mission. That's what we wanted to do. Did we do that or did we not do that? Did we achieve it? Did we not achieve it? Maybe we achieved it partially. Oh, that's fine, but we did something else. Or we need to enhance something. Evaluate and go further. If you plan, for instance, in the beginning, you have a plan of setting up 10, 20 hybrid classrooms. I would not recommend to start with 10, 20 rollouts. I mean, maybe I shouldn't say that as a technology provider. Start with 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 maybe. Test it. Look what is working also for your faculty. Bring them on board and then expand. That's so important to really start small and upgrade afterwards. Julie, you wanted to hop in here.
Yes, Simona, I just add to that you need to be so flexible when you're rolling out and even running a system like this, whether it's virtual or hybrid. Every day we are learning something else. You know, the technology is the first thing you need to get right, you know, and the build and the integration. But it's the day-to-day running of the room with people, their norms, how they behave, how you think they're going to behave and how they behave completely differently. You know, every day we're definitely listening to feedback and pivoting slightly on the way we do things. And I don't think that's ever going to change.
And that's your role, Julie, right? To listen, to make things happen, to have your team that is extremely flexible as well. I've had the chance to meet them and to make all the things happen. You know, it's that's well, thank you for doing that, Julie, at your institution. Okay, yeah.
Natalia has just said that we need to get to questions soon.
Sure. So just giving you a little bit more pictures actually about how we can set up things. I think you have clearly understood this is the plenary style. This just to show, and that's not something that for now Julie has implemented at UC Berkeley, but that's something we have implemented at several institutions, which is more the collaborative setup. So that's where you have pods. You can actually do a plenary session, or you can also bring people into breakouts that are also mixed, or then what we call a fluid style is that you can start in a plenary setup and then move, for instance, the yellow chairs to one of the screens, the red chairs to the other screen, and so you can move around during a session. So from a software perspective, that's completely possible. This is one of a hybrid setup here at in the US Mays Business School as well. So just to show you, this is King's College in Pennsylvania. They have this collaborative style setup as well. And with that, I would love to share more, of course, and there's a lot to talk, but we are getting to the hour. So asking you a couple of questions, and maybe before the questions come in, I just wanted to show you and focus a little bit more on, yes, and I said it before, there can be very sophisticated setup. So this is one in one business school. This is another one that you might have seen. But it can be also like this. It can be a very simple setup, actually. There's a couple of screens in a smaller room where you can have hybrid or virtual setups. Or like this, just on 2 screens on wheels. It really depends on what you're looking for. How flexible do you want it to be? How sophisticated do you want it to be? And what do you want to achieve? The Barco WeConnect software, the platform is flexible enough to allow anything, you know, so it's really, really important to understand that. So just to keep that. And now I open it up for questions. So maybe Natalia, do you want to bring in the questions that are still open?
Sure, of course. So we've had quite a few questions come up. One of them is, when students work in groups, do you mix the face-to-face students with those online?
And I think we briefly touched on this, and that it is possible with Barco, with, you know, setting up hardware and connecting it to the software. We haven't done that yet, but that's definitely the direction that we're moving in.
Yeah, exactly. It is definitely possible. So usually, and that's something that is a real hurdle with UC software, because we are not, it's not made for it, but we can mix up people that are in the room. For instance, there is a group of people that want to work on topic A, and some of them are in the room and some of them are remote. You just mix them up and you put them into one of these pods. What is, of course, crucial here is then to have the right audio and video, again, that people can be heard and seen, and that they're not disturbing each other if they have these pods in the same room.
Thank you. Another question that came through is, can faculty run sessions independently, or is it typical to have an in-room technician?
And they
Julie,
can absolutely, yeah, they can absolutely run it independently. And we have faculty who, you know, are nearly chasing us out of the room because they want to, you know, they're really into it and they, you know, want to just get their hands on it. That's not how we run it, but absolutely, I know in other institutions, that's the way it happens all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So it really depends. We have huge institutions that really want to be everything completely produced. So there is no room for a little bit of flexibility. Other institutions really want to leave the control to the teacher, to the faculty, so that if they say, as Julie mentioned before, okay, there is not a lot of participation, so now I want to launch a poll, or now I need to do this, because they can get that feel and that atmosphere actually from the people in the room and also the remote ones, they can do that. If it's of course completely produced and everything is done and you've got the whole team actually behind, this flexibility is removed. So it really depends on what kind of experience you want to deliver. But you can definitely run that. I mean, I always run sessions, I have to say, and tomorrow we have a session. I'm not running it, but sometimes I do our discovery sessions. I prefer being on my own, because then I feel really at ease and I just run it actually as we go.
Yeah, and I would add to that that the system is so intuitive. You know, even when we first built our virtual classrooms and we had scheduled a big training session and we were all ready to learn, but we could switch it on. We were too excited. We switched it on and worked it all out ourselves even before the training session. So you definitely don't need a technology qualification to run the room. It's very straightforward and, you know, intuitive.
Okay.
And then I just am going to jump in on some of the questions because some of them are similar. There's some questions about getting the data from the back end. You know, is there an API? There is, but it does come, you have to translate it. She says, going to the edges of her knowledge here, you just get a big ton of data and you have to right now translate it. But Barco, we're always a conversation with Barco about how to make accessing that data much easier for everybody. Mm-hmm. There's a question, what is the size of our virtual studio? How many in-person students does it hold? We have a few. We have, well, I suppose to start with our virtual classrooms for purely virtual, we have one room that's 48 seats and one room that's a 60-seater. So right now, when we move them to hybrid, we have one room that would take 48 on the wall and about 24 in the room. I think that's pushing it for now. We're sort of gently moving our way into hybrid. We're not going to want 100 people in the room and 60 on the wall. But so for now we have it's 30 and 30 in one room and then probably 24 and 24 in the other room. And then there's a question, do you record the sessions? And if not, what type of response do you get from executives who cannot make the session due to illness? We do record the sessions. I don't really like that we do, because the value of the session is the interaction with your fellow participants and the faculty. But of course, we do record it as a backup in that exact situation if someone can't join for illness or some emergency at work or something like that. And then there's a lot of questions about the interaction between the in-room participants and the remote participants. And I think that's definitely an evolving expertise for all of us, you know, and learning the hard way too. Whereas we were very used to the hybrid working brilliantly, not really having thought that as the fact that everybody knew each other already. So, you know, they were excited, they weren't being shy, they knew each other, they would all talk, they'd kind of laugh at each other and make jokes about each other in the room, and it was very dynamic and engaging. And then, you know, we had our first program of B2C, all individuals that didn't know each other, and the room was dead. And we were all, oh my goodness, we need to fix this immediately. So, you know, really leaning into sort of more icebreakery, which that word is even cheesy, but, you know, trying to get interaction from the wall with the room, and, you know, even as simple as where you're from with an open answer poll and putting that across their faces and then interacting, oh, I'm from XYZ company too, or something like that. So we're definitely, we're developing that as we go. And when we lean it more into the hardware solution for mixing up the groups of in-person and remotes, I think that will really help. Just checking time. Okay, let me see. Sorry, trying to keep us all on. Louis here is asking how we can get in contact with Barco. I'm sure all the information is there on the slide. Simone would be delighted to send you in the right direction there. What can you tell us about the viability of discussion between in-person and online participants? Even half a second of delay in the online feed can ruin the dynamism of the discussion. Yes. Number one priority when you have a system like this is that you need good, strong internet. It's a non-negotiable. But we really haven't, you know, we see people sometimes wobbling in and out, but that's not a huge issue for us. Obviously, if someone's coming in from behind a firewall, that can be a bit more of a challenge. But I would say we're up in the high 90s that things work pretty smoothly and delays aren't an issue. I think I've captured the majority of the questions there. And Natalia, I know you wanted to jump back in.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank you all. Thank you to Simone, thank you to Julie, thank you to our partner Barco and of course UC Berkeley Executive Education for such fascinating insight. Thank you all for joining us and for your brilliant questions and interactions. I hope you all enjoyed the session as much as I did. But if you missed anything, don't worry, because the recording will be available in post-event comms and on the AMBA and BJA websites within a week. Thank you once again, and goodbye.